On the evening of July 16, 1992, before a fired-up capacity crowd at Madison Square Garden in New York City, Bill Clinton accepted the Democratic Party's nomination for president. As the balloons dropped at the end of Clinton's speech, Fleetwood Mac's boomer anthem, Don't Stop, filled the garden. Fleetwood Mac broke up 5 years earlier, back in 1987, and it was not the most amicable of splits. But they reunited for one night on January 20th, 1993, to perform Don't Stop at President Clinton's inaugural gala. Our friend Andy Green, senior writer at Rolling Stone, picks up the story.
The band hadn't played together in years, and Stevie Nicks and Mick Fleetwood had just gotten into a nasty spat in the press. Despite all the drama, it proved very tough to turn down an invitation from Bill Clinton.
From that day to this, the song has been inextricably linked with Clinton. It was his walk-off song again after his 2024 speech at the Democratic National Convention. Throughout that gathering, the celebratory, joyous mood was kicked up several levels by a rockin' soundtrack. Pundits across the political spectrum noticed, even if some were a bit grudging about it. That got us thinking about the intersection of presidential politics and music, so we're going to unpack some history, do a little commentary, and rock out while we're at it. We'll jump around to some different examples, and then bring it back to the present day. All right, get into it right after some housekeeping.
Pack it up, pack it in, let me begin. I came to win, battle me, that's a sin. I won't ever slack up, punk, you better back up. Try and play the role and you're the whole crew will act up. Get up, stand up, come on, throw your hands up. If you got the feeling, jump up, touch the ceiling. Monks, let's a funk flow, someone's talking junk, yeah, I'll bust them in the eye. And then I'll take the punks out, feeling funky. Amps in the trunk and I got more rhymes in this cops at a donkey. Donut shop, sure enough, I got pop from the kids.
This podcast is intended to be education and commentary. It will discuss adult themes and may use coarse language. Pantheon Podcasts presents Rock and Roll Archaeology with host Christian Swain. Music, culture, technology, and rock and roll. And now, on with the show.
Hey there, Christian Swain here. I am the Rock and Roll Archaeologist. And yes, you guessed right, you clever people. This is Rock and Roll Archaeology on Pantheon Media. Along with my colleagues, Jerry Danielson and Richard Evans, I say welcome back, my friends. Hope you all liked episode 25. We love 70s progressive rock and we geeked out on it hard, but we tried to make the topic interesting and fun for every rock fan. So please let us know how we did. This is another RNRA short where we take a closer look at single topics. It might be about rock and roll or in the neighborhood, rock and roll adjacent, if you will. Stuff that piques our interest or maybe something we missed in the main show or things that listeners suggest. So suggest, please. Social media links, our Patreon and TeePublic pages, a bunch of podcast feeds, and more at rockandrollarchaeology.com. And we will see you over there. Finally, we want to plug an amazing online archive called Rock's Back Pages. It is our go-to spot for research. It's all happening at rocksbackpages.com. All right, now for the setup. So, the topic today is the intersection of rock and pop music and American presidential campaigns. There is a long and interesting tradition here. It predates rock and roll by more than a century. A little about that. And we'll discuss the more recent past too. But first, some disclosure. If you've listened to our podcasts, you know that we lean to the left politically. There's diversity of opinion among our team, but that's the general tilt. And we're engaged. We follow current events, give money sometimes, and do some volunteering. Heck, one of us is actually an elected official. Jerry serves on the board of trustees for his local community college, and he's up for re-election this year. If you are in his district, vote for Jerry. But generally speaking, we are not in your face about politics. We just have a saying. Just tell the story and the point will get made. There is one notable exception where we definitely colored outside those lines. That was a short that we called The Art of the Steal. We put that out in the summer of 2022, the midterm election year here in the States, and that was intentional. We got more pointed with that one, although I hasten to add, we did several revisions, toning it down each time before we released it. So we do stand by every word, but we lost some supporters, probably gained more. It's hard to quantify exactly, and that might happen again this time. So be it. All right, let's get into it. Friends, this is another Rock and Roll Archaeology short, and we're calling it The Politics of Dancing.
Rock and roll would remain in force until the end of presidential and parliamentary elections, scheduled for some rules. The idea of
we got the message. I heard it on the airwaves. The politicians are now DJs. The broadcast was spreading station to station, like an infection across the nation.
In the 1996 presidential election cycle, then Vice President Al Gore was not in step with the politics of dancing. 4 years earlier, he'd been the butt of many jokes for his awkward dance moves. Al and his wife Tipper tried to cut a little rug when they joined Bill and Hillary Clinton on stage for the Unity pose while Fleetwood Mac rocked and all the balloons dropped. Didn't go well. 4 years later, in 1996, the cheesy but fun dance song Macarena by one-hit wonder Los Del Rio was the current summer smash. It was in heavy rotation during the 96 Democratic Convention, which was held in the United Center in Chicago. We will come back to that venue. The Macarena was the hype song of the convention. The news cameras frequently cut away from the stage to show delegates getting goofy and dancing. Gore opened his speech with a self-deprecating joke about his own two left-feet dance moves. He asked the audience if they'd like to see his version of the Macarena. Then he stood there, stiff as a board and still as a stone, for a long beat. Would you like to see it again? Cheesy song, corny joke, but it was before a friendly crowd, and they ate it up.
Coming to you on a dust road. Good loving, I got a truckload. And when you get it, you got something. So don't worry, 'cause I'm coming. I'm a soul man. I'm a soul man.
Clinton and Gore faced off against Kansas Senator Bob Dole in the general election that year. Now, Dole was a bona fide war hero and one of what is now a rare breed, the principled Republican. The kind of candidate where you go, all right, I may not agree with them, but this is a good person who cares about the country. Yes, the American Republican Party did nominate people like that, and maybe they will again someday. One can only hope. Anyhow, for his campaign song, Senator Dole repurposed Sam and Dave's 1967 R&B hit for his campaign. I'm a Dole man. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. You know, sorry. we scoured the obscure corners of the internet, but alas, we could not find a recording of Senator Bob Dole's 1996 presidential campaign song. Sam Moore, the tenor half of Sam and Dave, was on board. He repurposed some of the original lyrics and sang the new version. But the original songwriters, Isaac Hayes and David Porter, and Stax Records, who held the copyright for Soul Man, did not want to be associated with Dole. They threatened legal action. So the Dole campaign had to drop the song. Oops. We'll get into more presidential politics seen through a rock and roll lens from way back and from the recent past too, right after some words from our friends. Stay right here.
Happy days are here again. The skies above are clear again. Let us sing a song of cheer again. Happy days are here again.
According to the Smithsonian Institute, theme songs for American presidential campaigns go back to 1800, maybe even earlier. Sometimes they happen by accident. In the 1932 presidential campaign, Happy Days Are Here Again became forever associated with Franklin Delano Roosevelt and the New Deal. At the Democratic Convention that year, the House band was continually playing a long, dismal, down-tempo version of the U.S. Navy anthem Anchors Aweigh. FDR was a former Assistant Secretary of the Navy. It was his favorite song. Now, during a lull, someone in the audience shouted, "For God's sake, play something else!" On a hunch, the band leader quickly switched up to Happy Days, and the crowd roared its approval. The 1930s was the decade where broadcast radio came into maturity and became the first instantaneous mass medium in the world ever. We really can't overstate how big of a deal that was. Now, an aside, but interesting, saying that out loud brings us to realize something. We are fast approaching 100 years now since electronic mass media became part of everyday life in America. Make of that what you will. All right, back to the story. The rise of radio and that happy accident on the bandstand at the convention synced up to turn a bouncy little ditty into an early example of a mass media phenomenon. FDR was swept into office in one of the biggest landslides in American political history. When the inauguration finally rolled around on March 4th, 1933, Happy Days were not here again. Along with the rest of the developed world, America was down deep, mired in the fourth brutal year of the worst economic depression in modern history. Unemployment, homelessness, and hunger were at levels never seen before or since. People were desperate, and fear leads to bad choices. Fascist movements were on the rise in Europe, in Asia, and even here in America. Joyous and upbeat in the face of all that Happy Days Are Here Again struck a more hopeful chord in the American psyche. Along with FDR's declaration that the only thing we have to fear is fear itself, it transmitted defiant optimism. It called on the country to summon what Lincoln called the better angels of our nature.
So first of all, let me assert my firm belief that the only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
Beautiful, spacious skies. Now those skies are threatening. They're beating plowshares into swords for this tired old man that we elected king. Armchair warriors often fail, and we've been poisoned by...
Nearly half a century later, in 1980, a former registered Democrat, union leader, and in his own telling an admirer of FDR, co-opted his style, if not his substance. The baby boomers of the 50s and 60s had become the me generation of the 70s and 80s, and they supported this actor-turned-politician in landslide numbers. A lot of voters, not enough sadly, saw right through Ronald Reagan's act. His Morning in America optimism didn't land. It just seemed like sugarcoating for his regressive economic ideas. On the international stage, Reagan's nuclear saber-rattling was frightening. His disregard for human rights was appalling. But the unkindest cut of all was how shit just bounced off him. The blunders, the scandals, none of them seemed to stick to Reagan. It was an ominous foreshadowing of Trumpism, that upside-down world where facts don't matter and truth is subjugated to spectacle, where voters by the tens of millions get bamboozled and the news media just normalizes it.
Did you read the news today? They say the danger's gone our way, but I can see the fires still light. They're burning into the night. There's too many men, too many people making too many problems, and not much left to go around. Can't you see this is
Now, when it comes to rock music, there is a glass half full observation one can make about the Reagan years.
Who was the person who did more for punk rock in the 80s than anyone? And I ain't talking about Jello Biafra or John Lydon. It was Ronald Reagan. Everyone got into punk bands because of him.
That's Joseph Keithley, who currently serves on the city council in the township of Burnaby, British Columbia. He ran and won the Canadian Green Party ticket back in 2018, and he's been there ever since. Fans of 80s hardcore punk might know him better as Joey Shithead, a guitarist and singer for the seminal hardcore band DOA. We're going to spend some major time on the punk rock response to the Reagan over here and Thatcher over there years in an upcoming main show. But when we learn that Joey Shithead from DOA is now an elected official, I mean, come on, that is way too good to pass up. Only in America. Oh, wait, that was in Canada.
One kid dreams of fame and fortune. One kid helps pay the rent. One could end up going to prison. One just might be president. Only in America.
If it felt familiar when Brooks and Dunn's Only in America played after Barack Obama's acceptance speech last night, there was good reason. President George W. Bush used the same song 4 years ago when he was rallying against Democratic candidate John Kerry.
That's Daniel Krebs from an August 2008 article he wrote for Rolling Stone. Later in the same piece, he noted that Brooks and Dunn supported Obama's opponent, Senator John McCain, and they had played at Republican fundraisers. Mr. Brooks was quoted. He said the Obama campaign approached the duo to secure permission to use the song, and they were fine with it. Very flattering to know our song crossed parties and potentially inspires all Americans, he said. Brooks and Dunn were one of those 1990s, early 2000s hat acts we talked about in our last short, Celebrating Country Soul. Here's what we said then. They blended charming tales of country fairs, pickup trucks, and achy breaky hearts with rock and roll guitar, bass, and drums. Radio programmers dubbed it hot country, and audiences ate it up. We want to be clear, this is not at all a put-down of Brooks and Dunn. We actually kind of like these guys. As far as hat acts go, they're a pretty good one. And that quote from Mr. Brooks, how they were pleased about their song crossing political lines, well, that's just great stuff. Very gracious. We could use some more of that. The United Center in Chicago is not quite as storied as Madison Square Garden, where we started this episode, but it has contained, just barely, the hum and thrum of a lot of recent history. Opened in 1994, this massive indoor arena, concert capacity 23,500, has soaked up decades of crowd energy. Michael Jordan's Chicago Bulls, considered by many to be the greatest basketball team of all time, clinched 3 of their 7 NBA championships right here. Dozens of top-tier musical acts have made this their Chicago stop as they toured America. Pop stars like Olivia Rodrigo, Beyoncé, and Taylor Swift have graced the concert stage at the United Center in recent years. For you old-school rockers, how about Bruce Springsteen, U2, or Pearl Jam underneath the hot lights testifying to tens of thousands? Our point, prior to the 2024 Democratic National Convention, the United Center in Chicago had seen it all. Well, maybe not quite seen it all.
Georgia, how do you cast your votes?
Yeah! Ladies and gentlemen, we are here tonight to officially nominate Kamala Harris for president. Fire, get loud, another round of shots. DNC, turn out for what?
All the politicians are now DJs, goes a line in The Politics of Dancing, a 1983 bop by the British new wave band Reflex. We borrowed their title for this podcast. Now, after what we witnessed at the 2024 DNC, all the politicians will now hire DJs.
Kansas, how do you cast your vote?
I can't hear. Hello, delegates from the center of America, the Sunflower State, Kansas, where our farmers feed America, where we elect strong women who govern from the middle.
Not all the roll call presenters were like Little John from the ATL, explosive, overflowing with enthusiasm. Some were tentative at first, overwhelmed by the moment, kind of like, we're not in Kansas anymore, Toto. But in all cases, they brought a refreshing, quirky charm to the ceremony. And if they stumbled a bit, well, no biggie. That bumpin' soundtrack was there to back them up.
Now, once again, my name is DJ Cassidy, and this is the DNC roll call. So let's pass the mic around the nation.
So, a little background. The televised roll call goes back about 50 years. Both parties have always followed roughly the same script. Typically, it's the early evening on the second day, not a featured position. In alphabetical order, each state or territory, 57 altogether, answers the roll call. The home states that the two nominees will pass the first time through, so they get featured position at the end of the ceremony. This time, it was Minnesota and California. When called upon, each delegation will flex a little bit and remind the rest of the country what makes their home turf unique and special. A reminder to our friends abroad, this place is freaking huge. Few Americans have actually been to all or even most of the states and territories, so it's kind of neat to go there in your imagination. We've always liked that aspect. And at the end, they all come together, e pluribus unum, out of many, one. For the delegates in the hall, it's a lot of fun and a chance to show off. For those of us on the couch at home, not especially compelling. More a civics exercise than a celebration. Until this year. How do you transform an event known for being, at best, endearingly awkward into 75 minutes of the most entertaining live television we've seen in a very long time? You bring in the man with the golden microphone, DJ Cassidy. Let's meet him.
Now tonight is a celebration of love, a celebration of life. So let the celebration continue.
Mr. Secretary. I'm Russ Carnahan.
On his 10th birthday, Cassidy Podell's parents gifted him turntables and a mixer. As a teen, Cassidy scoured record stores and DJ'd for any gathering that would have him. As a high school senior, he worked his first club gig. In college, he built a rep as the guy to call if you wanted to throw a rager. It was around this time he fully developed his style, deeply knowledgeable about music, relentlessly positive into his gold microphone. Rocking a brightly colored tuxedo jacket and matching bow tie, and of course the big boater hat that has become his signature. In 2003, Cassidy graduated from New York University with a degree in sociology. He was already working high-end clubs and before long Grammy parties, the VMAs, and celebrity bashes for the likes of Oprah Winfrey and Beyoncé. It was Oprah who passed his name along to President Barack Obama. Cassidy worked the Mid-Atlantic inaugural ball in January 2009, and about a year and a half later, the president's 50th birthday party at the White House. During the pandemic lockdown in 2020, like so many of us, DJ Cassidy was looking for an outlet, a way to keep calm, a way to keep going.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is DJ Cassidy, and I'd like to welcome you all to Pass the Mic. And this musical journey is brought to you by my musical heroes and is dedicated to all the heroes around the world on the front lines of health, freedom, and justice. Now I'm gonna pass the mic from my home to the next. Spread love from one home to another. And let's get this celebration started. Sing it, Philip.
DJ Cassidy's Pass the Mic started out as a one-time thing. Yeah, very basic, a screen grab of a half-hour Zoom call with some of Cassidy's musician friends, backed up with a playlist. Hosted virtually at Cassidy's LA home and then posted to social media. The response was off the hook viral, so Cassidy kept making them, kept passing the mic. Within a month, the BET network picked it up as a show. Jump ahead to 2024, when he was tapped to do something never done before, provide music for a convention roll call. We'll let Cassidy pick up the story himself from an interview the following day with Jen Psaki on MSNBC.
And when the producers of the convention first came to me, I learned something that I totally didn't know, which was that music has never been a part of a convention roll call before. And they said, you're going to be the first musical maestro of a convention roll call. And that's something that I really had to wrap my mind around.
Psaki went on to say that everyone will be doing this at convention roll calls from now on. And all we can say is, yep, count on that. Another day, another interview, and we really liked his remark from The Beat with Ari Melber, also on MSNBC. Links to both interviews are in the show notes. We'll cue it up and give DJ Cassidy the last word.
I truly believe that the number one source of unity in the country and in the world is music. Music is shared celebration. And when we celebrate together, we appreciate all that we have in common.
I'm Christian Swain, and this has been Rock and Roll Archaeology Shorts on Pantheon Media. Hey, quick reminder, you can check your registration and track your ballot very easily at vote.org. Rock the vote, everybody. Take good care. Keep up the rockin'.
Freedom, freedom, I can't move. Freedom, cut me loose. Yeah. Freedom, freedom, where are you? 'Cause I need freedom too. I break chains all by myself. Won't let my freedom rot in hell. Hey.
Rock and Roll Archaeology is written by Richard Evans and Christian Swain. Produced and hosted by Christian Swain. All sound design and incidental music by Jerry Danielson at Busy Signal Studios. Find all of our shows, notes, and links at pantheonpodcast.com. All songs can be found for purchase or streaming wherever you get your great music. Please pick up these amazing tracks. Contact us on social at Pantheon Podcasts on Facebook and Instagram. Tweet us at Pantheon Pods.